All right, this is another Fox News alert. New information on the final minutes before a doomed Air France plane plunged into the ocean in 2009, killing everyone on board, 228 people. Investigators revealing the autopilot system cut off shortly after the pilots alerted crew members to possible turbulence ahead. One co-pilot then started taking the plane higher, but then the plane lost speed and stalled, and that began a horrifying 3.5-minute plunge, dropping 7 miles right into the Atlantic Ocean. The information coming from 2 flight recorders that were recently discovered nearly 13,000 feet beneath the surface. Joining us now on the phone, commercial pilot Robert Mark, editor of jetwine.com, and he's also writing a book about the Air France plane crash. Robert, thanks for joining us. What do you make of the latest news to come out?
Well, I think it's a sad situation no matter how you look at it. I mean, it's pretty clear that the pilots did not quite understand what the information was that was in front of them, and you know, for listeners, it's really important they realize that we're kind of Monday morning quarterbacking just a little bit here. But you know, inside the cockpit, it would have been raining, it would have been bumpy, it would have been dark, there would have been lightning out there, lights flashing all over the place, people probably yelling at the top of their voices for one person to do one thing, another to do another, and all that time the instruments weren't giving them the proper information. However, with that being said, pilots are still taught that no matter what, that they still have to fly the airplane. And I think that probably says something about the state of the technology in our airplanes as well.
Well, and a little bit of what I've read about what's coming out, it talks about there were speed sensors that apparently project if the plane's actually, is it going too slow that it would lose lift? And if those sensors aren't working correctly, and it seems like here there may have been some problems with those, as you mentioned, the pilots aren't getting the best information. Once you take off those autopilot systems, though, why would this pilot be going higher? To escape the turbulence? What's the move there, and why would the plane ultimately then stall out?
Well, to answer your first question, why he would go higher, possibly to try to get out of the turbulence. But at that altitude, the airplane doesn't have a whole lot of power left because it was heavy enough to climb up very high. So that wouldn't have had much of an effect. But as far as why the airplane stopped flying, it's as simple as when we teach people. I still teach people to fly, and it's just like we do in a little training airplane. If you pull the nose up high enough, the wing stops producing lift, the air stops flowing across the wing, and it stalls. That's what we call that, a wing stall. And that's exactly what happened here. Now, why they didn't understand that is a whole other issue. But, of course, the solution is always the same. You push the stick forward, and you push the nose of the airplane down. Now, they didn't get that message somehow, and we don't quite know why yet.
Is there any way, once a plane begins, what we understand here sounds a lot like a free fall? Is there any way to abort that, to turn things around?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I think if you look at the report that came out of Paris last week, it's very clear that what they were doing is the stick was being held back, the nose was being forced to stay up in the air, when if they had simply let go of the stick or pushed it forward, the nose would have come down and the air would have started to flow across the wings again, and the airplane would have flown. Now, it may not have looked normal to the pilots because of all the other things that were going on, but it would have made the airplane fly. And again, why they didn't understand that, why they didn't try that at least, that's something we still don't know.
Any possibility they could have been incapacitated in any way?
I don't think so. I think that the conversations on the cockpit voice recorder make it pretty clear that everybody was there and they were trying to figure out what was going on, but it would have been a chaotic situation, again, with a number of things all happening at the same time. But again, this is not the first time that an airplane has stopped flying because of ice on the pitot tubes. We saw this in the Buffalo crash, where the pilots reacted the wrong way when there was ice.
Well, it's just absolutely tragic for the crew, for everyone on board that plane.
Absolutely.
Robert Mark, thank you so much for giving us some context to what we're now learning.
You're very welcome, Shannon.